I'm a huge Charlie Chaplin fan, and particularly out of all of the movies, I love City Lights. And if you've never seen this movie, I'm going to give you the shortest synopsis that I can, because it's very much connected with the gospel today. Charlie Chaplin is a homeless guy. He's walking down the street. He sees this beautiful woman, and she's blind, and she's selling flowers to make a living out of a basket in a park. And as soon as he sees her, he falls madly in love. And he walks with her home, and he discovers that unbeknownst to her, if she doesn't come up with the rent, she's going to be kicked out on the street. So she's unaware of this. And Charlie Chaplin decides he's going to make it his bounden duty to ensure that this woman is taken care of. And that's the drama of the movie. All of the things that he does to make sure that this woman is cared for. And the first thing he does is he signs up to fight a real prize fighter in a boxing ring to win $50. And, you know, the funny part is there's this really strong Charlie Chaplin who looks like a plucked chicken when he takes his shirt off, and he dances around the ring and avoids the guy, and there's this silly fight that goes on, and he gets flattened and he loses. But he's still undeterred. He gets right back up after he loses this fight, and he goes out into the street and he decides he's going to become a street sweeper. And you see him in the next scene, and he's picking up bottles and cans and sticking them in his bag. And he says, this is okay. And he turns a corner, and there are some horses walking by. And he makes he goes like this with his nose, and he takes out a shovel, and he starts cleaning up after the horses. And he walks a little bit farther, and then there's a circus. And an elephant goes charging through the street, and Charlie Chaplin does that famous jump up in the air and runs the other way. And so there's this event after event, and finally he does get the money. And without wrecking the plot, I'll tell you that he gets the money and more than keeping her in her house. He's able to really take care of her. He gives her the money. He immediately gets arrested, goes to jail. Last scene, Charlie Chaplin is let out of jail, and he looked really kind of bad off in the opening scene. Now he looks completely forlorn. His clothes are more shabby. He looks hungrier. That glimmer in his eye is gone. He's kind of walking on the street. Kids are throwing spitballs at him and laughing at him. And he turns a corner and he sees a floral shop. And in the window of the floral shop is the beautiful woman. And she has gotten enough money to pull together that she's been able to get a surgery and she can see. And so she's making this gorgeous arrangement of flowers. And when Chaplin sees her through the window, he goes from being despondent and full of despair, and his face opens up like the sun. And he's just radiating joy at seeing where she is and love for her. And he's standing there at the window smiling at her, and she sees him and starts to laugh and says, I've made a conquest. But the thing that makes her laugh is, of course, how could somebody like this man be in love with her? It's just preposterous, this foolish homeless guy. But she feels pity for him, so she comes out with a quarter and a flower. She comes to the street, and she hands him the flower and the quarter, and when she touches his hand, it's the feeling of his hand. She suddenly remembers from when she was blind. And this look of kind of pity is washed from her face, and there's this look of knowing and this sudden grief at his experience and his suffering that crosses her face. But his face doesn't change at all. He's just so overflowing with love. And the last moment is Charlie Chaplin staring at her saying, so now you can see. And she looks about to cry, and she says, yes, now I can see. And you don't know how it ends. Oh, it's up to you to figure out. I think that the temptation of Jesus' story is up to you to figure out too, by the way. You don't know how it ends for us with Jesus. Because when Jesus is led out into the wilderness and Satan keeps saying, if you are the Son of God, you might think it's a debate whether or not he is the Son of God, but that's already been established in the chapter before. It's clear that this is the Messiah. So Satan isn't suggesting he might not be. But what Satan is suggesting is you might not be up to this job because people are going to crush you. And if you are going to be their Messiah, the one that saves them from themselves, you are going to have to remove yourself, give yourself a little emotional distance from them because they will cut you to the core and break your heart. When Satan says to Jesus, if you are the Messiah, turn these stones into bread, he's not only talking about Jesus' personal hunger in that moment. He's saying, you know what? I know you think that you've come here to love humanity into living like real full human beings. I know that you think that you're going to come into the world so much and you're going to love them so well that they're going to learn how to share with each other and see their neighbor as their brother and sister because you love them, and you're going to restore them to their full humanity, but it's not going to happen. They're never going to learn how to share. Just make them line up and deploy your power over them, and just give them the bread. Control them. Control how they act with one another. You be the provider of bread. Don't think that you're going to give them hearts of flesh when they really just have hearts of stone. And the next temptation, when the devil tells Jesus to go up to the pinnacle of the temple and jump off, what he's saying is, make them live in fear of you. Show your great power in ways that control them. Because I understand that you've come to teach them how to forgive one another and to show mercy and to glorify God by having thankful hearts and not coveting and living like the human being that they were created to be in the first place and restoring them to their image of godness. It's not going to happen. I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. Your father sent plenty of prophets before you to try to get them to live the right way. It'll never happen. Control them with fear. No. Jesus refuses to control them with fear. And then Satan leads him up and shows him all the empires of the world and says, I'm going to cut you the best deal anyone ever got, Jesus. You can have all the empires of the world. You can legislate over them just as long as you bow down and confess that they ultimately belong to me. Confess that there's always going to need to be a military. Confess that you're always going to have prisons. Confess that you're going to have to force people to love their neighbors as themselves. Rule over them and make them live the right way. Just confess that the world is mine and I will give it over into your care. Every temptation that Jesus faces with Satan is a temptation that he's given to distance himself from our fallen humanity. To not completely come into the world and love us like human beings, one at a time, and allow us to break his heart. He'll have none of it. Jesus doesn't stay up at the pinnacle of the temple and legislate over empires. He comes into our broken humanity, searching for us, just like Charlie Chaplin with that blind woman, and loving us in a way that says, with all of the things that he does, do you see me? Do you see me? Can you see me yet? I have a friend who recently wrote an email to me explaining that she was so hurt and so angry by somebody else's action. She said something that I've said before and maybe you've said before. And what she said was, I just don't care anymore. I feel nothing. It's so satisfying to say that. Because what we do is we take our pain and we say, I refuse to feel it anymore. And that way I kind of weaponize myself. There is nothing you can do to touch me anymore. And we think it has to do with some kind of power and courage and bravery when we say it. And what we do is we trade our humanity in when we say, I just don't care anymore. I'm not going to feel it anymore. You can't hurt me. What we do is that we say we've decided to be less human because it hurts so much to be a human being. And we think somehow that that shows our strength. And what Christ does on the cross and on this journey that we're about to make with him through Lent is he says that the real courage, the strongest thing that you can possibly do, is go into the world and feel. Be alive in the world. Have your heart broken and get right back up. And live. And know at the other side of that cross that you're afraid of, where your heart is going to be broken, real life. Brothers and sisters, pick up your cross and trade in your heart of stone for a heart of flesh and follow him. Amen. During Lent, I'm going to invite a moment of reflection after each sermon. And I'm going to give you a question to reflect on. And if you feel so moved to do it, I'd invite you to take that pad of paper and pen that you were handed when you walked into the door and write a reflection, a sentence or maybe two on it. And take that Post-it and put it on one of the columns that's nearest you. This is the question. Last time you said, I don't care anymore, either verbally or in your heart, what part of your humanity did you have to give up? And are you ready to take it back? Again, last time you said, I don't care anymore, what part of your humanity did you have to give up? And are you willing to take it back?